Alright, in this next video demonstration we're going to create some secondary DNS zones. So the first thing we want to do is go to server A, and we're going to go into the DNS snap-in. We're going to the forward lookup zones, and let's go ahead and make a custom zone. New zone, forward lookup zone, primary. Now the reason that this checkbox is grayed out down here is because this is not a domain controller. So this zone will not be able to be stored in Active Directory, and it will be stored in a local file with a .dns extension based on the zone's name. So if it was ilikecandles.com, it would be ilikecandles.com.dns, stored in the Windows System 32 DNS folder. So we're going to do a primary zone, and let's do ilikecandles. Why not? ilikecandles.com. Say next. Notice it says create a new file with the file name, just as I mentioned. Cannot do dynamic updates, secure dynamic updates if you're not in Active Directory. So we're going to say do not allow dynamic updates, say next, and then finally finish. And let's go back into the forward lookup zones and look at our zone. There's our sort of authority, or SOA, and NS record that is created. And next thing we want to do is make a new host record based on the server name. So we're going to right click in this white space and say new host, and specify the server name, and this server is server A, and the IP address of this server is 192.168.55.33. Say add host. So we've successfully added that host record, as you see here. And the next thing we want to do is add an alias of www that points to this host record. So people could theoretically go to ping www.ilikecandles.com. So let's right click on this white space here and say new alias, again www. Notice how it populates the FQDN. Browse, server A, forward lookup zones, ilikecandles. There's my host name or host record that I just created. Say OK, and OK one more time. So there's my alias that I created. Again, I could go in here and ping www.ilikecandles.com. Actually, wait, before I hit enter, I can't. This won't work because right now everybody is pointing to server B for name resolution. So if I try to ping this right now, it would not work. So I'm going to hit escape and back out of that. All right, the next thing that we want to do is allow server B to become a secondary DNS server for this zone called ilikecandles.com. Now by default, zones do not allow zone transfer. So we need to allow this zone to do zone transfers by right-clicking on the zone name, go to Properties, and go to the Zone Transfers tab. And notice it says allow zone transfers only to servers listed on the Name Servers tab. I'm just going to go ahead and say to any server and say OK. So now we've got zone transfers being allowed. So let's roll over to server B and go to our DNS snap-in on server B. And we're going to forward lookup zones, and let's make a new forward lookup zone secondary for ilikecandles.com. So I'm going to go to right click on forward lookup zone, new zone, and we're going to say a secondary zone. Again, it cannot be stored in Active Directory, and say next. And then we're going to make sure it's the exact same name of ilikecandles.com. It has to be spelled exactly the same. Next. Then the IP address 192.168.55.33 is server A's IP address that's holding that zone. Then we'll say finish. Now it's very deceptive just to look at this and think that everything went through okay. We want to always double check the zone to make sure that the records actually transferred along with it. So let's double click inside the zone, and we do see that the records transferred over. All right, so now that server B, which is who everybody is pointing to in our infrastructure here, in our intranet for name resolution, because server B is a secondary of server A, everybody can now ping www.ilikecandles.com. And we get a response. We could do this from server B. We could even go over to Windows 7 and try to ping that. And again, Windows 7 is pointing to server B for name resolution, so it should work as well. And there we go, we get our response.